Hey guys, welcome back to Daska Discusses. I thought since The Irishman just got released on Netflix, I thought why not go back and I'll tell you guys what I think my top 10 Scorsese films are. Now it could be a bit controversial, I haven't seen The Irishman yet and I really want to get around to it, but for now, let's look at what I think at the moment Scorsese's top 10 films are. So let's do this. At number 10, I'm going to put Mean Streets. You could say that it's Scorsese's breakthrough feature film, which stars Harvey Keitel, Robert De Niro. I'm not going to get into too much detail about all of these films, just going to put them in ranking and why. Now, this could easily have been in the top 5, but I find that, in terms of Mean Streets, it's a classic, that breakthrough film for Scorsese, and De Niro plays such a good role, but I think Harvey Keitel's performance here steals it for me. Even though De Niro's iconic entrance, to Jumping Jack Flash is fantastic, but that whole kind of gangster story of seeing that, that not low life gangster, but that low kind of person in the hood becoming something bigger in terms of, being like a gangster is like a common theme among, Scorsese's films, and Mean Streets really hits that, and if anything, it's more raw than I think the other films that he's made, but it definitely deserves a spot in the top 10, maybe a bit even like a higher ranking, but for me, I'll put it at number 10. So number 10 for me is Mean Streets. Number 9, and again, I'm going to get some controversy here probably, but I'm putting The Color of Money. Yep, they say it's the sequel to The Hustler starring Paul Newman, and it's got Tom Cruise in there, and it's got, I can't remember her name, but she plays Gina in Scarface as well. And again, this whole thing about Paul Newman being like the expert, the pool player trying to teach Tom Cruise the rules and the ropes, you could say, of pool hustling, but the way it all comes down to that last tournament at the end, I think this is a really underrated Scorsese film, but The Color of Money, Paul Newman, Tom Cruise, definitely deserves to be number 9 on my list for Scorsese film. Number 8, gotta put in here Gangs of New York. Daniel Day-Lewis, DiCaprio, Cameron Diaz. Again, a lot of people weren't big fans of this when it came out. I think it's a fantastic film, and Daniel Day-Lewis playing the butcher is fantastic. The whole story revolves around New York. When was it? I don't know, the turn of the century, 1890s or something like that, 1900s, but the way it's filmed, the way it's shot, the cinematography in it is brilliant, but it's a Scorsese film, you're going to get that. There's a lot of violence in it, as per, every other Scorsese film out there, you could say, not all of them, but I think it's, I think Daniel Day-Lewis, he missed out on the Oscar for this. He got nominated for it, and DiCaprio plays an okay role. He was still young at this point, but you could see in further films with DiCaprio and Scorsese, that kind of tag team, this was one of the first, if not the first, where they teamed up together. And I reckon that he did a really good job, but he did do better in further films, which we'll talk about later. But for now, definitely Gangs of New York, number 8 for me. Number 7. Another one with Robert De Niro that again looks overlooked, and maybe it's going to cause more controversy here because there should be other films in here, but I'm going to put Cape Fear. Yep, got to be up there. Look, I'm a bit of a horror thriller fan myself, and although yes, it is a remake from the original, I still reckon Robert De Niro plays an excellent role in this. Again, I don't know, I can't remember if he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this, but he really plays that crazy kind of role of Max Cady, trying to get revenge on his lawyer that obviously he thinks didn't do him justice, as he says in the film, from his crimes, and ends up getting out and wants revenge onto the life that he missed out on. And we follow the family here. I think it's Nick Nolte's in it as well, obviously, yeah. But I just think Cape Fear as well. I think De Niro, you can see in all these films where you've got this key protagonist or antagonist, they just steal the show, and De Niro definitely steals it. And I'm putting Cape Fear for its thriller kind of aspect to it. The soundtrack's amazing, and that final sequence is just like well shot, and it's kind of like reminiscent of a real nightmare. So number 6 for me is Cape Fear. Number 6, I think the peak DiCaprio-Scorsese partnership peaks at this point, and that's with Wolf of Wall Street. Although not everyone's type of film with its like hard kind of content of drugs and I can't even get into it, but I think Wolf of Wall Street deserves to be in the top 10 at number 6, seeing the progression and the real life story of Jordan Belfort, the stockbroker. Now, I read his book back in the day as well, so some parts of the film are are shown pretty accurately, and some aren't, but you're going to get that in film. Margot Robbie plays a really good role in this as well, and Jonah Hill does play an excellent role as, you could say, Jordan's sidekick. If you're into that whole kind of different look of Scorsese, not gangster, but what one man's journey can do through being a nobody and then rising with money through a different kind of path rather than gangster kind of life. then definitely check out Wolf of Wall Street, which is at number 6. And a lot of these films, obviously guys, they're not really suitable for children because a lot of them are rated R here in Australia. And Wolf of Wall Street is definitely rated R. Now entering the top 5. Well, this is going to be a hard one. And I've already had a few friends saying, oh, I'm putting The Irishman, you know, number 1 for me, but I haven't seen it yet. So my top 5 as it stands right now, I'm putting The Departed, number 5. Now, it follows the same kind of formula, but again, in this you've got De Niro, Nicholson, Matt Damon, and Mark Wahlberg in the movie as well, and you've got also, I've got to figure, Alec Baldwin. You've got a lot of key figures in this, and they all come together in this film. And with this whole thing about who's undercover, who's not undercover, who's working for the cops, I'm not going to give away too much, but it all builds up just like a Scorsese film does right at the end for this epic ending that a lot of people weren't happy with, but I reckon it's a fantastic ending. And Mark Wahlberg definitely steals the show in this. In his minimal scenes that he has, he definitely does steal the show. Martin Sheen's also got a role in this too, so there's some big key characters in this, some great storyline that happens, and you know, use a few flashbacks, but you can see DiCaprio getting better and better with this partnership that he has with Scorsese. And that goes to show even in The Aviator as well later on, in another film that he made with him. So, The Departed for me, in my top 5. Number 4. Well, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Yeah, you gotta go with Casino. Now, this could be up higher on the list, but for me, I think it deserves number 4. Following that whole gangster kind of formula with De Niro, now you got Joe Pesci in there as well. Sharon Stone plays a brilliant role as De Niro's wife in the film. But it's showing this progression of like how the casinos developed or how they all came about in Las Vegas during that peak time of like the gangster kind of warfare. I think Casino definitely deserves a spot in the top 5. And a lot of people say, oh, it's really like drags on a bit and it's boring. Well, you know, if you watch it now, I think people's kind of attention spans, I'm not saying everyone's, but unless you're into this kind of gangster genre and into this slow burn, you're not going to find it that engaging, right? Which is why, you know, The Irishman's being 3.5 hours long. I really want to see it, but again, the average person out there who's been used to all these Marvel kind of films or these 2-hour type films like Casino, Departed, or even, you know, Goodfellas that go for nearly longer than 3 hours, that might push a few people, but for me, definitely deserves number 4. And you can't go past that ending in Casino as well, that last sequence. It seems that it's a common theme that a lot of these Scorsese films have just got epic endings. It's kind of like Tarantino, but better. Number 3. Now, I've always held this up there as, you know, and at one point in my life, I reckon it was my favorite of all time for Scorsese films. But again, with De Niro, the classic You Talking to Me. Yep, I'm talking about Taxi Driver. Now, with Joker being recently released, a lot of people are saying, oh, there's a lot of influence on it, which there was a lot of key scenes and like some dialogue or even some shots that were reminiscent of it, but you can't really compare Taxi Driver to Joker. They're obviously 2 different films. One took some parts out of it, and I could see, and in my review I said it, how Joker did have that feel for me of a Scorsese film, but Taxi Driver up there is just again, the acting displayed by De Niro. Unfortunately, they didn't win the Oscar as well. Jodie Foster plays a great role. Harvey Keitel plays the sleazy kind of role that he does in it. I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen it, I would say if you've seen Joker, go back and see that and let me know what you thought of it as well. Because you can see the similarities and you can see one man's, you know, journey through this kind of chaotic city that he lives in and what he does to try and clean it up. Number 2, yeah, Jake LaMotta, Raging Bull, De Niro yet again with Joe Pesci. Now, this could easily have been number 1. It's amazingly shot. It's something that I would show my senior students in terms of like how cinematography works and how lighting works and how the whole effect of black and white and filming like a boxing scene and the way Scorsese does it and the way De Niro actually, like his portrayal of Jake LaMotta is fantastic, and it deserves number 2, if not number 1 on this. And if you haven't seen Raging Bull and you consider yourself a Scorsese fan, well, how can you call yourself that? Seriously. I mean, if you haven't seen Raging Bull at least as a Scorsese fan, then you better get your Blu-ray and watch it in the amazing transfer that they've done of it. But just the story of the actual box and the way they go about it and the raw grittiness of the acting and the scenes, you can't go past Robert De Niro, Jake LaMotta. done. Raging Bull, number 2. Now, before I get to my number 1 for what my ultimate Scorsese film is, just want to put some ones out there that honorable mentions for the top 10. Definitely got to be Hugo. I did like that, but it didn't put in my top 10 for that. Shutter Island, another great thriller that I think deserves to be in a top 10, but maybe not mine, but it's definitely up there. You know, it's quite creepy as well. And what I really feel bad not putting in, and maybe I could have taken it out for something, would be King of Comedy. Again, if you've seen Joker, if you haven't seen Joker, well, if you've seen Joker and you go back and watch King of Comedy and Taxi Driver, you'll see the similarities. But De Niro playing Rupert Pupkin and Jerry Lewis in it. It's a fantastic film, quite dark comedy, but yeah, I really feel bad not putting that in my top 10. And number 1, well, yeah, you guessed it, or if you haven't already, yeah, I'm putting Goodfellas up there. Why? Well, look, I haven't seen Irishman yet, and already everyone's saying that it's his best film ever, but for now, Goodfellas is up there because of just, well, the trio of Liotta, De Niro, Pesci, and that whole story of Henry Hill, that gangster that rose from, you know, being a kid, working with the gangsters, doing odd jobs, and then rising to what he was. That whole mafia warfare, the grittiness, the violence, the swearing, there's a lot of funny parts in this, and how can you forget Joe Pesci with, you know, what's so funny, how am I funny kind of scene. But I think my favorite part of Goodfellas has got to be, I think, the last act of the film where Ray Liotta has to, you know, basically take care of the sauce, go pick up some guns from Jimmy the Gent, and he's got the helicopter chasing him. Meanwhile, his nanny's making phone calls and he's getting wiretaps from the FBI. All this stuff happens, and it's just a fantastic kind of conclusion to the film. I think it's just well made, well shot, and Ray Liotta steals the show. If anything, no, I think Joe Pesci steals the show in terms of like what he does in the film, and I think he won an Oscar for it as well. And I think Goodfellas was robbed of the Best Picture Oscar as well, and Best Director. Now, I know back then I think it was Dances with Wolves won that year, which is a fantastic film as well, but come on. Goodfellas is one of those things where I think it's definitely been stolen. Most stolen Oscar is definitely Goodfellas. So Goodfellas for me at number 1. Now, guys, as always, if you agree, well, if you like the video, please leave me a like down below. Comment, let me know what you thought of my top 10 list, and let me know where you reckon I could have adjusted a few things, or let me know what you thought of the whole video in total. And if you want to subscribe and keep up to date with my videos, please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. And I'll see you guys on the next episode of Dasker Discusses. Hopefully, the next video I do is an Irishman review, so that'll be good, eh? I'll catch you guys next time. Boom!